What's up, guys? This is Lucky. Welcome back. It's been a very, very long time since I did a video, but I've come out of quasi-retirement because I have something I feel is important to talk to you guys about today. And I'm here to talk about Battlefront 2 and the Battlefront 2 beta and my experience in the Battlefront 2 beta. And I'm here to tell you not to buy. And here is why. I'm going to give you five very good, solid reasons, each one of them on their own, enough reason not to purchase Battlefront 2. And then probably about 7 or 8 things that really frustrate me about the game, just general grievances about the game that I feel could possibly be addressed, but at the same time, ultimately, any one of these big reasons, the big 5, is enough to squash purchasing the game. So let me tell you a little bit about myself first, and then we'll get into what the big 5 reasons are. So, about me. I am a diehard Star Wars fan through and through, to my very core, as much as anyone can be. I vividly remember my parents taking me when I was 6 years old to go see the original Star Wars. I remember being totally blown away by it. I couldn't wait to get back, and I went and saw it over and over and over again in the years that followed 1977. I remember being to see Empire the day that it opened, and I've seen every Star Wars film since then, the day that it opened. I remember playing the great arcade classic, the stand-up where you attack the Death Star, the Atari version where you flew the little speeder around at the AT-ATs, the SNES version, Mysteries of the Sith, Dark Forces 2, X-Wing Alliance, TIE Fighter, the original Battlefront, and Battlefront 2, and yes, Battlefront 2015. I absolutely have adored the Star Wars games. I adore the Star Wars universe. It is something I share very closely personally with my brother, my belated brother. It's something very, very dear to me, and it's something that I've made part of even my family. I am a fan through and through, as much as anyone, and so it really pains me to be here. But here I am, sitting here, holding my pre-order in my hand like an idiot, warning you to stay away from Battlefront 2. I didn't want to be here. I wish I wasn't here. I loved Battlefront 2015. I know that the game had issues. I know at launch it didn't have as much content. It only had 4 big maps and about a dozen smaller maps. But within a few months, not including DLC, in a few months they released free content for that game, and it ended up with 7 big maps in the base game and about 16 larger maps, plus you could play single player against AI. Added lots of weapons and such. It was a full game, and it was a lot of fun with a lot of different modes. I played that game for months and months on end, literally every day. I had a great time with a lot of good friends. I had a bunch of friends join me. We had a blast. It was dirty, casual fun. It wasn't deep gameplay, but it was dirty, casual fun, and it was Star Wars, and it felt like Star Wars, and it felt like it captured the original spirit of the original Battlefront, and I actually really, really enjoyed the game. And I know that there were issues with it. I know some people wish that there had been a class system. I know that there was balancing issues, even as DICE slowly started to address some of those with gun damage and basically raising the cooldowns of some of the cards. Some of that stuff needed to be addressed. There was too many ways for people to die instantly. I think that turned some people off. And there wasn't a story campaign. And the gunplay itself was, it was hipfire, but it was, in a way, it was kind of, the original Battlefront was hipfire too, and just kind of casual shooting either. It wasn't super in-depth shooting. And so I kind of feel like it really did capture that spirit of the original. I know that some people took issues with the pickup system, and it wasn't a perfect game, but nevertheless, I thoroughly enjoyed the game, had an absolute blast. And so when Battlefront 2 was announced, I absolutely could not wait for it. Instead, I'm here to tell you not to buy. And here is why. Reason number one, it's not Star Wars. And this is perhaps the most damning thing that I can possibly say about it. It doesn't feel like Star Wars a lot of the time. And some of you may be, Lucky, what do you mean by that? It says Star Wars, these are droids, and this is Naboo, and these are clone troopers, and it sure looks like Star Wars, but it doesn't feel like Star Wars. Now, I could listen to Star Wars music and watch paint dry and probably be entertained. But let's start with music. When you're in game, the music fades to the background. It's almost non-existent. In fact, sometimes it disappears completely for long periods of time. Now, going way back, even back to the 90s, games had become smart enough that the music was contextual. The music matched what was happening in game, and it picked scores and pieces of music and themes that were appropriate for what was happening on screen. This game, so the music disappears. Now, when you die, all of a sudden the music flourishes. Well, that's not when I want the damn music to flourish. It's not exciting me dying and going back to a spawn screen. Menus aren't exciting. Why don't I want to hear the music full blast in the menu system? I want to hear the music full blast when everything is going crazy. That's when I want to hear the music. When things are at their peak and lasers are flying all over the battlefield, that's when I want to hear the music. Here the music, for the most part, disappears. And oftentimes the music is totally out of place. And maybe this is nitpickety Star Wars, but you've got the wrong music for the wrong era. And I'm sorry, when I'm at the Force Awakens music, I don't expect to hear prequel music. It just does not mesh at all. If there was music. But most of the time there's not music. It goes to the background. And this is unacceptable in this day and age for a Star Wars title. But let's get on to something else. The guns in Battlefront 2015 received a lot of criticism because they all felt the same. In reality, many of those guns actually shot differently. They had different ranges, different damage outputs, they had different rates of fire. But one thing that most of the guns shared was most of the guns actually sounded the same. And sound and audio is a third of the experience when shooting the gun. So if you pick up one gun and it sounds similar to another gun, your brain is instinctively making you feel like these guns are the exact same. When in reality, they might play slightly different, although it would take you some time to discern those unique differences. But the guns sounded the same. They sounded the same because they're Star Wars guns. And Star Wars guns almost all sound the same. But these guns don't sound like Star Wars guns. I don't know what these... Sometimes they sound like Star Trek guns, like phasers. They sound like all kinds of crazy stuff. But they do not sound like Star Wars guns. Now, a few of the base assault rifles. The base rifle that comes with the assault class sounds like a Star Wars gun. But the rest of the guns, the other 7 in this demo, sound nothing like Star Wars guns. And it is ridiculous. Like, it does not sound like Star Wars. Furthermore than that, the laser tracers that fly through the air are not nearly as significant as they were in the original Battlefront 2015, or the original Battlefront for that matter. I don't know what's going on visually there, but for some reason, just not getting these huge tracers cutting across the battlefield like you got in the original ones, and it doesn't look or feel like a Star Wars battle. And since we're talking about look real fast, the particle effects. There are particle effects in this game where sparks are flying all over the fucking place that are not in the Star Wars universe at all. They are not Star Wars. I don't know where the hell they come from. But it does not look like Star Wars. It does not feel like Star Wars. It does not sound like Star Wars. And yes, I realize I'm on Naboo. I realize there's clone troopers there and droids. And the droids are saying, Roger, Roger. And there's these hints that I'm in the Star Wars universe. But it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. And maybe this doesn't matter to people who aren't fans of Star Wars. But as a Star Wars fan, it drives me insane. I'm not playing a Star Wars game. And if I'm gonna spend money on a Star Wars game, I expect to be playing a Star Wars game. Now, to its credit, Starfighter Assault looks and sounds phenomenal. The explosions, the lasers, the audio, they all sound exactly like the Star Wars universe. They sound perfect, and the game mode plays great. Star Wars Starfighter Assault is an amazing immersive experience, and it may be the life-saving grace of this game. But the core content, which is the land battles, Galactic Assault and Strike, that is not right at all. It does not sound like Star Wars. It does not feel like Star Wars. And many times it does not look like Star Wars. Reason number 2. Walker Assault versus Galactic Assault. In the original Battlefront 2015, consisted of the main mode was called Walker Assault. That was the main 40-person mode. 2 huge walkers would be advancing through the middle of the map. And they'd hit 3 different checkpoints. And each of these checkpoints were uplinks. So the first part of each stage was for the rebels to rush around, command and control, capture these uplinks. The longer they held control of the uplinks, the more Y-Wings that they would accumulate. And you'd be there and you'd be running and gunning. And it was very clear. You could see, oh my gosh, okay, we're up to 4 or 5 Y-Wings now. And then all of a sudden, you'd hear Y-Wings incoming, and everyone would turn, and you'd see this big Y-Wing fly in from outer space, drop a huge bomb on this huge walker that's dominating the battlefield. It would light up with sparks of electricity and energy, and everyone would turn and just focus fire the walkers like a big giant boss. And there was lasers flying all over the place, and ships were flying in trying to damage the walker, and the rebels are trying to get off as much damage as they possibly can in this tight time window that they have. And the Empire is rushing in, and rebels aren't even paying attention to what's going on, and they're trying to take out as many rebels as they can to prevent as much damage from going into the walker as possible. It was frantic, it was crazy, it was exciting, it was frenzied, and it took you several games to figure out what the hell was going on. But once you understood what the game mode was, it was phenomenal. It was great. It was like this mix of this giant boss battle, and the front moved slowly with the walkers all the way through the map. And it constantly felt like a big battle, right? And you were constantly being pushed through the map into different environments and different perspectives and different things and everything. Each map, each stage had a different feel for it. Even each individual uplink station, and there was 2 at each stage, had a different advantage. You know, some had high ground and low ground advantage, and it was amazing. And guns were flying everywhere, and it was frenzied. But Galactic Assault is a clusterfuck of epic proportions. Naboo, as it stands, involves this giant MTT, which is a droid ship that moves through the center of town. And it's trying to move through until it can get to the doors of the palace and then blow them open. For the time being, the clones are supposed to capture 2 of these bazookas, one on each side of the map, which spreads the battlefront out thin and causes people to be all over the place. You go and you grab this bazooka, and you're supposed to go and then aim the bazooka at the MTT, and only when this ion bazooka goes off are you allowed to do damage to the MTT for a very short period of time. There's a bunch of huge problems with it. One, someone can just grab the bazooka on your team and run around and try some crazy flank and not even try. I've been in games where someone picked it up and didn't even try to shoot the thing. They just ran around holding it. Which one guy can screw up the entire team if he just picks up that bazooka and doesn't go try to damage the MTT. 2, it's really not clear where you are, how much damage you've done to the MTT, where you're at. Even if the guy does get it and he does move to the correct spot or to a spot where he's within range and he's about to shoot, no one knows that he's about to shoot it. There's not enough comms and not enough teamwork and not enough information on screen for you to know that this guy is about to shoot it and for everyone to focus fire on MTT. So what happens is you're off on this flank somewhere in another battle with like 2 battle droids and maybe like 2 guys on your side, and you maybe hear over the comms that it's time to damage the MTT, or you don't hear it all because it's not really prevalent. And by the time you realize it's time to hit it, you've only got a few second window, and you turn to shoot at it, and the window's gone. And there's not this big, massive, intense moment of people laying fire on it. You don't know what's going on. The communication is poor. You're completely dependent on people. One person getting the ion bazooka and laying waste in it, and 2, you don't even really understand how much damage you've done to it and the impact that you're having while you're doing it. And 3, you're all over this huge wide area. So what happens is, instead of having a big battlefront, you've basically got all these little bitty sporadic mini gunfights going on all over the place in little flanks. It's just chaotic and messy, and it's a clusterfuck. It's clusterfucky as hell. It's fucking not fun. And then, when this thing finally does get there and smash open the doors to the palace, then it changes to the worst form of choke point gameplay, where you have a bunch of droids funneling through these 2 tight doorways, through a series of tight doorways, and it's basically a bunch of guys running heavy weapons, little mini bazookas and explosions going off, and it's mostly grenades and explosive spam just flying into this doorway, and just constant explosive spam. And you run up, you unload a bunch of explosive spam, and then you get a bunch of explosives and you die. You run up and you repeat this process over and over again. And it looks nothing like Star Wars. It feels nothing like Star Wars. There's not fucking grenades going off in Star Wars. I mean, that's a topic for a different matter. But anyway, it is clusterfucky as hell. And then you get into this choke point gameplay, which is just not fun. This game mode is not fun. And don't even get me started on Strike, which is the smaller person game mode where you're supposed to go and capture an artifact and take it all the way back. It's basically a one-way capture the flag type deal. It is awful. It is perhaps one of the worst game modes I've ever played in my life. It is god-awful horrible. It is just rotten to the core. And not only that, in either one of these cases with the artifact or the ion cannon, someone can pick it up and run off on some wild flank and end up dying, and it stays there wherever this crazy spot is that this one idiot went to, and you're stuck defending it, and it takes huge amounts of time off the clock before it resets and goes back to its base place. So honestly, in both modes, one person can completely screw everything up, and one person will. Inevitably, one person will. So it's just, I don't even know what to say about them. It's just the poorest game design ever. Now again, Starfighter Assault is completely different. Starfighter Assault, it's relatively clear what you're supposed to do. It'll take you a few games to figure out what you're supposed to do, and it feels good, and the gunfight actually moves through different parts of the map, and different stages feel differently, and it feels great. It feels like an actual Star Wars battle. Starfighter Assault is perfect. But, again, the core game mode is just wrong, and it's just not fun. It's not fun. Number 3. The loot crate system is just wrong. It's just wrong. On like a moral level even. It's just wrong. Now, Total Biscuit spent 40 minutes discussing loot crates and this trend in gaming, and he covered it thoroughly in depth, and I won't even begin to go as in depth as he did, or Angry Joe. They covered this frequently, but I did want to add my own little spin on it. First off, I'm not opposed to loot crate systems at all for customization. In Overwatch, they have a loot crate system, and this is almost an exact replica of it in some ways. You get boxes, you open the boxes, you get 3 different items, and with Overwatch, they're purely cosmetics. They're skins and sprays and voice lines and highlight intros, and the content is actually good and fun, and I'm a strong supporter of that system because in my mind, it allows people who basically don't have money to play the game and earn the loot boxes legitimately and get these cosmetic items, or people like myself who work a lot and don't have a lot of time but have money, who have money and no time to purchase loot boxes and get some of the cool cosmetics and stuff to dress up my characters. And I spend each one of the major events that Overwatch has, I spend a ton of money. I've spent way more money on loot boxes, I confess, than I did the actual game. I've spent a ton of money on loot boxes. And if Battlefront 2 had a system similar to that, where it was cosmetics and emotes and stuff, oh my gosh, I just dropped a ton of money in there buying cosmetics. But as it stands now, there's no way I will not spend a fucking dime on it. It feels dirty, it's wrong, and it's cheating. Because what you're getting is not just cosmetics. What you're getting is RNG, a random chance. You're gambling for a chance to get cards which modify gameplay. And people need to stop selling short. They're not small modifiers. Stop using the Boba Fett example. Because their Starfighter, if you have the ability to modify DPS, you are affecting time to kill. And when you're affecting time to kill, you are pay to win. If you get a card that allows you to increase your DPS or combine with other cards to significantly increase your DPS, like you can reduce the cooling of guns, you can reduce the cooling of your Starfighter guns, you can increase the damage of your Starfighter guns. That allows you to kill faster, and that is pay to win. There are many cards in here, weapon upgrades and stuff, that give you a significant advantage. If you do more DPS than the other person because you purchased something, you are cheating. In my mind, that is cheating. That is just plain fucking wrong. That is cheating. It is the equivalent of a bicyclist or an athlete doing performance-enhancing drugs to give them an advantage that other people don't have who work legitimately to get their bodies in shape. It is cheating. It's morally wrong. It's abhorrent. It's disgusting, and it's repugnant. And we should, as gamers, absolutely refuse. I mean, I know I've pre-ordered this and I can't get out of it, but at the same time, I will not spend a damn dime on that system. And here's the part that even bugs me the most. I'm a parent. I know kids are going to buy this game. This is so morally repulsive of EA. EA knows that children are going to buy this game. They know that credit cards are tied to your PSN account, and that kids will get this game. They'll have the ability to immediately go into the PSN store and buy loot boxes. They'll be able to buy loot crates and stuff, and they will do it, and it will be a month before their parents get the bill, and they are using gambling, and the kid will sit there and just gamble until he gets the cool cards that he wants. And there will be parents who will get the bill a month later and be stuck with this massive bill. And this ties into the same psychological stimuli as gambling. And they are putting this in kids' hands without warning parents about it. And it's flat wrong. You believe me, I will be warning every parent that I know about this game not to buy this fucking game. And that's why I'm putting this video out. I came out of quasi-retirement because this is morally wrong and morally unacceptable. And since we're on it, why wasn't this done with character customization? I could have handled character customization. Because most people don't care that much about character customization. There are still people who would have done it. Like myself, I would have done it. You know, you would have got plenty of money if you just stuck to character customization. But instead you made it is pay to win. And people need to stop making excuses for them, because it is. it gives you a tactical advantage. There are cards in there that give you an absolute advantage. And one Redditor, basically, he calculated just for guns alone, if there's only 12 guns in the game, if you want to try to do this system legitimately, 480 hours to upgrade your guns. And that's just the guns. That's not including the star card upgrades. It will take you hundreds of thousands of hours to do this legitimately because they are basically locking this behind a paywall. And this is from a $60 title that they know that they're gonna sell to kids because it's Star Wars. They know kids are gonna buy this. It's just wrong. It's so wrong. I'm actually really appalled that it's happening. And I do want to say one more thing. The character customization in the original Battlefront 2015, there was huge variety of character customization. You could be young woman, young girl, man, guy with a mustache, bald dude. You could be all kinds of things. You could be a stormtrooper. You could have helmet. You could have marks on it. You could be a shadow trooper. You could be a scout trooper. You could be different officer classes, especially by the time they got all the releases out. There's so many different cosmetics out there. Now, I wasn't a big fan of the helmetless stormtrooper, and in fact, I never once went helmetless, but just out of pure principle. So I'm glad to see that go away, but the actual ability to customize your characters is way less. I mean, maybe it's just not in the beta, but there's like none of those options for customizing your character are actually in the game, and you had huge variety in the first one. If they had done something like that with this system and it allowed you to get cool skins and different things for your character and basically cool emotes and all that cool stuff, yeah, I'd been all in on this system. But as it stands now, the loot crate system is just wrong. Now, number 4, the class system. After the release of Battlefront 2015, one of the biggest requests, and also one of the biggest complaints, especially from longtime Battlefront fans, was the class system. You see, in the original Battlefront and in Battlefront 2, going way back in the day, basically you had different classes. You had a scout class, you had an engineer pilot class who could fix ships and such. You had the assault class, obviously the heavy class, and like shock trooper who had a jump pack. They each had different loadouts, and they also had different guns, preset loadouts and guns. Now in Battlefront 2015, it had basically a build your own loadout system. It used star cards and these ability cards, which were versions of star cards that gave you like ion shot and scan pulse and different like use activation things that basically gave you temporary buffs. And then you also had star cards like thermal detonator, stinger pistols, certain different types of star cards, and you could mix and match things how you wanted it. And on top of that, they had something called trait cards, which gave you like perks like bodyguard, you took less explosive damage, or scout kept you off radar, allowed you to be stealth. So you could mix and match these things and build your own loadout system. Now, one of the biggest drawbacks to the Battlefront 2015 system was that it only allowed you to have 2 within game. So you really were stuck within these 2 loadouts that you had picked before the game, and you couldn't have like 4 or 5 and 6 loadouts available for you to switch between the different stages of the match based on what you needed. So if you were preparing to do damage to the walker, you could switch to a class specifically for that. And or if you wanted something to take specifically heroes out, you'd have to have all that stuff pre-selected before the match began. Big drawback. But that's not one of the things that a lot of people pointed out. A lot of people just wanted to bring back the class system of the original Battlefront. And man, critics and Reddit and almost everyone I talked to, oh my, the nostalgia goggles were on heavy. They were on thick. Everyone wanted to bring back the class system. Oh my, the original Battlefront, the class system was so great. Oh, we really should bring that back. There was such diversity. Okay, people are under the assumption that because there's a class system that people will pick something different besides the jump pack thermal detonator, scan pulse meta that's there today, and everyone will have something different versus having the same thing all the time, which this is false logic because people are going to gravitate towards whatever class and system and gun loadout kills the fastest. And within 2 to 4 weeks, everyone will be running the exact same thing, and you'll have the exact same problem anyway. 2, there's a reason that class systems died. It's because perk and loadout systems are infinitely superior to class and loadout systems. Beginning in the latter part of 2000s decade, around 2007, 2008, COD basically popularized the perk loadout system, and perk loadout system has been dominant in gaming ever since then for almost 10 years now, because it allows for many millions and millions more options. It allows players to customize their loadout to their particular playstyle and come out with a wide variety mix of loadouts and such that give you way more play possibilities than what you have in a set class loadout, especially way more than the original Battlefront, which was very restricted, and in this new Battlefront, which is also even more restrictive. So that's my big number 4, is that this class system, which everybody had the nostalgia goggles on for, is far more restrictive than the previous system. In fact, the way it is now, only certain star cards can only replace certain other abilities. So you may have a star card for something you like and not be able to actually replace something that you don't like. So you're stuck replacing something, you're stuck with 2 star cards that you really like, but you, in one slot, you can't replace the slot you want to replace. You've basically got a junk item that you don't want because you can only replace your 2 good items with each other. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. It is so restrictive. And the choice of guns that you have, I mean, I know this is just the beta and there will be more in the final game, but the choice of guns you had in the beta was just 2. And even in the full game, if there's 5, 6 guns per class, that is still very restrictive compared to what I could do before. I had my choice of dozens and dozens and dozens of guns. I could mix and match things however I wanted to. I had all these different combinations. The only restriction I had was just being able to bring just 2 loadouts into the match. Like, if they had just upped that to 4, it would have been perfect. I would have been perfectly happy. And honestly, it was a better system in Battlefront 2015. And I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. And that brings me nicely into reason number 5. The ability spam. It's ability spam versus gunplay. Now, some of the new abilities are cool, but one of the problems in Battlefront 2015 when it first launched is the cooldowns on grenades and rocket launchers and all these one-hit kill items was way too low. Way too low. And basically people were getting one-hit killed all over the place, and there was basically stuff flying all over. But ability spam in this game is even worse. Even worse. It's even more dependent now than ever it was before. In Battlefront 2015, they slowly upped to those times, and so it was still bad, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, with it, by the time the December and January patch came out, it was a much better than it was when it had originally launched. But here in this version, the cooldowns are way too short, and people are far too dependent on grenades and abilities and the special abilities that allow them to get that one-hit kill. And part of that is because the time to kill. Now, I want to talk real briefly about time to kill because there's some debate on that. Some people say the time to kill is too long. Some people say the time to kill is too short. The reality is that time to kill for assault rifles is kind of long because the damage output on the base assault rifle, which is what most people use, is a little bit long. Especially if you're not getting headshots. The headshot multiplier in this game seems to be really high. But for the other guns, like the officer's pistol and stuff, all the other guns seem to have great DPS. And in fact, you can drop people really quickly with a lot of the guns in this game. So the time to kill is not too fast at all. In fact, I would say I would argue that the time to kill is too small. It's shorter than it was in Battlefront 2015, and that basically the damage for the auto rifle just needs to be slightly up, slighter. So there just needs to be some balancing there amongst the guns, but the time to kill, honestly, I say it could be longer. I mean, and one of the things that happened in Battlefront 2015 was you had a little bit longer time to kill with base gunplay, but it allowed you to like juke and move and roll and kind of duck around your opponent, and you actually got into a gunfight with somebody, and whoever came up on top of that gunfight won. And it felt really good. It felt like the original Battlefront. This doesn't feel like that at all. Honestly, it's a mix between being too quick, but in some cases, like with assault rifles, it's too long. And then you've got these abilities that are one hit on top of it all. So there's a lot of dying really fast in this game, and there's a lot of killing really fast in this game, especially if you're hitting your headshots. But I don't think that that's good for the game, honestly. It doesn't seem to be focused. It's a shooter that's not about gunplay. It's a shooter that's about abilities. Which is, I guess, fine if you're kind of like Overwatch, but even Overwatch is more shooter focused than this. I mean, when I play Overwatch, I'm shooting. My aim matters. And it's a lot about shooting and contextualization, even though you have all these crazy abilities. But somehow, this game, which should be purely about shooting, is not. It's about abilities and all this other crazy stuff. And what's really fucked up about it, and goes back to my original point about it not being Star Wars, is Star Wars is primarily about blaster battles. It's either blaster battles or a lightsaber duel. One of those two things. But normally, it's blaster battles. People shooting back and forth with blaster guns. Laser guns. It's a laser gun fight. You don't see grenades and all this kind of crazy shit coming into play in the original Star Wars movies at all. It's all blaster guns. But in this game, it's about everything but gunplay. It's a shooter that's not about gunplay. It's so... I don't even know. It's not... And the gunplay that's there, I don't think is that good. That's just my personal opinion. Let's get on to some of the little things that certainly kind of irk me. Since we're on gunplay. The reticules. These are the worst fucking reticules I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen worse reticules ever. They are god-awful horrible. And maybe I'm spoiled rotten, but every other game I play, the reticules are phenomenal or great. Like, you play a game like Destiny where the gunplay just feels really good and really smooth, or you play anything, COD, other third-person games, the Uncharted games, the reticules are acceptable. This is trash. These are the worst reticules ever. The worst. And, man, it's just really bad. I want to talk a little bit also about the point system, because the point system I actually have mixed emotions about. I really like that you can earn points to get Jedi heroes and ground vehicles, because they are deeply impactful to the game. But, that being said, the cost for air vehicles is way too high, and then one of the reasons why is because air supremacy is fucking pointless. There is no point in getting in your ship and getting any aerial vehicle and flying around these maps. You can't see the troops on the ground. You can't find them. You're flying too fast. There's not enough other ships in the air for you to even have a decent dogfight. It's unclear when you're supposed to fire on the MTT, so by the time you get set up for your pass, it's too fucking late. The time has passed. I mean, again, you can get in this gunship, and, I mean, I guess the gunship allows you to kind of do damage, but you're just sitting third person and shooting the ground. You can't see troops. It's... Why anyone would spend any of their points on starfighters in Galactic Assault is beyond me. It just seems utterly pointless, and I don't think people will. I think people will give them a try the first week, and within 2 weeks, no one will ever be getting up in the air. So, maybe if you made them like 50 points to get into them, maybe people would spend some money on them just to get in the air, but as it stands right now, there's really no point in them. You might as well save your money for a battle droid, or a jet trooper, or a hero. I mean, I'm never going to spend my money on it. I mean, as much as people slam the pickup system, in the original Battlefront 2015, in one game, mind you, I could start out in an AT-AT, I'd be walking around, taking guys out, and then I'd die, and then next thing I know, I'm in a TIE fighter, flying around, having a dogfight in space, and then I crash, and then I fight on the ground through Hoth base, and before I know it, I picked up another pickup, and I'm running around as Darth Vader at the end of the fight. I mean, I could do all that in one match, and more. It was amazing. Sometimes you'd get the hero pickup like 2 or 3 times just out of sheer luck. And it was fun. It was crazy. It was a blast. But I do inherently like this idea that if I earn the ability to be a hero, I can go pick it up. And I actually think that that's a better system. I kind of feel like that's true for land vehicles because you can get so many kills with land vehicles. But starfighters and the aerial vehicles have no impact on the game. In the original Battlefront 2015, if you had air supremacy, you could strafe troops on the ground to your heart's content, and you actually could affect the course of the battle. You could completely change the course of the battle. You have zero effect. Air supremacy makes no difference in this Battlefront at all. It's completely pointless, and therefore spending your points on these freaking starfighters is completely pointless. So, the point system could work, but it needs a lot of tweaking. And a few other little things. Thermal detonators now suck. That was like one of my favorite things from the first game, and now they just suck. I loved the sound of a thermal detonator going off in the big, huge, massive explosion. It felt good. It was getting one of those pickups was like a rush. And you took it out of the gosh damn fucking game. Holy shit. Why? Oh my god. You can't block as Darth Maul, and who knows what other Jedi you can't block at, but that's just Star Wars sacrilege. All Jedi can block. I don't care. If he's OP, then you got an OP problem. You got a balancing problem, but the fact that you have a Jedi hero that can't block is just, again, it's wrong. Now, there's something else I do want to talk about, and I have thought for a long time. In Starfighter Assault, AI is in the air, and so there's always starfighters to shoot at, and it works really well. Even going back to Battlefront 2015 and in this beta, you had as many AI in the air as you did basically players, and so it feels full. It feels like a full battle, and there's always stuff going on, and you can be distracted shooting AI, or you can find a player who's distracted shooting AI and take advantage of that situation and catch him off guard. It's great. It made for great gameplay and some really smart gameplay and strategic gameplay. But the ground needs AI, especially in these maps, because things are so spread out. There is not enough troops on the field. It does not feel like a battle. I mean, yes, in the choke points, you got a lot of people there, but I know you have the ability to do AI. You do it in single player and co-op, and I know you can do it in a multiplayer mode. Plenty of games are able to add AI in multiplayer modes and keep track of that, and keep track of that with everyone else's netcode, and to contemplate that. You know, look at a game like Assassin's Creed and think about how many AI they had on a map at any given time, and it's way more than... If you could match the number of players with AI on the field, these battles would feel full, and they would feel intense, and they would feel more like the original, and you would actually get a Battlefront developing where people are matched off, and it would change this game in so many ways for the better. So I really would like to see something like that happen. It didn't happen this time, and it may not ever happen. And that wraps it up. Thank you guys who stayed with me all this time. It's been an exceptionally long video, but I had a lot to say, and I had a lot of heart in this video. Those are my big 5 reasons why not to buy. Basically, coming down to it doesn't feel like Star Wars. Galactic Assault isn't a great game mode. It's a terrible game mode. The loot crate system is just plain wrong. The class system is restrictive, and it's more about abilities than it is about gunplay. Plus a bunch of my other little sub-reasons why: character customization, thermal detonators, no blocking, tons of other little things out there, load times, and the point system needing tweaking. So in general, This game is a super do not buy. I'm very disappointed to say that, but again, I can't stress that enough. Thank you guys for joining me. This is Lucky signing out. Peace.
Recalculating. All units initiate self-destruct. Your mission